Mr. Agarwal, he talked about the cost aspect. If you can give an overall outlook on financing for CBG projects and what kind of challenges developers are facing and what kind of challenges do lenders face while giving loans to CBG products. What is the industry experience right?
Thank you so much, Mr. Sarthak. So, good evening, everybody. I think first of all, I would like to thank you to all of you that in spite of the last session, this hall is 80% full. So, it really shows that we are very serious about the CBG projects or CBG business actually. So, friends, if you see, CBG is not a new subject and the financing is also not new for the CBG project actually. But I think the sector has seen the challenges in the past also, in the current also, and future also there will be challenges actually. Because all of you are either the service provider or the manufacturer or the developer. So the funding is the blood for any organization or for any business actually. Without funding, nothing will happen actually. You have all the means, everything, but if the funds are not available, nothing can be done. So as Resurgent India, we are the merchant banker. And our job is to enable funding. So before reaching to the right partner, how to prepare yourself and how to present yourself, that is very, very important. Actually, the lenders, investors are having little time. They want to see the everything according to their requirement actually. So if I see the challenges from the financing point of view, there are two parts of the funding. One is debt, another equity actually. So if you have seen on the debt side, because debt is something around 75% of the project cost actually. So this is a larger money which is required. Many times the equity is available but debt has to be taken up. So as a lender or as a financial institution, they want to see that whenever you are coming to get this funding, all the areas which are very important from the project point of view. First of all, they see the person who is setting up the project actually. So 50% job is done. Pawanji is sitting here actually. He has given a lot of money to the CBG projects also earlier. So I think 50% job is done, and who is the person, who is the company who is setting up this project actually. So whenever you are setting up any project, you just see the credentials of your company and how you can improve your credentials by way of partnering, joint ventures and everything. This will help to get the funding from the right partner at the right cost also. And after that, in every project, the land is there which is required, the technology, the optic agreement, raw material tie-up, all these areas are there which are required to be clear in the mind or in the paper also, that these are the things which we have already sorted out. And if I have not got the final confirmation, but LOIs are with us actually once we are going. And after that, there is a project report and the TEV reports. So because these are the projects which are having a lot of technicalities. So every bank, every lender would like to have some kind of third-party reports. Instead of your report, they would like to have a third-party reports by a reputed company which can do the analysis of these aspects, and then they can give a report with their stamping, so that they can rely on that, lenders can rely on that actually. So now, if you are ready with all these things, then the next question comes, who will fund you actually? Because the shortlisting of the right partner is again a big challenge. There are more than 150 banks, NBFCs are there in the country which are lending to the various sectors actually. But for the CBG, it's not necessary that all will fund you actually. So everybody has their own policy, all parameters in terms of the size of the project, stage of the projects also. And so there will be hardly 5, 7, 10 agencies, 10 lending agencies which will fund the project actually. So we should do the analysis if you are doing directly or you are going through some consultant and all. You should see that your time should not go waste actually. If you go to an agency where they are not funding to the CBG project, their policy is not there or they have burnt their finger, then it will waste your time actually. So it is always better to see the background of the organization in terms of the funding of the projects, what is their policy also. So there are very few limited agencies are there. And why this has happened? Because Government of India and RBI is very clear. They are pushing a lot actually. They are put it in the priority sector list and everything. But in spite of it, many banks are not funding these projects because they have burnt their finger. Earlier, the commitments were done by the developers and all. The project could not be completed. There was, the raw material was not available. So these are the areas which they want to see. So only 5, 7, 10 agencies are there. So you have the limited this thing also. Then it comes the debt equity ratio, cost of the fund, and all these things are there, which need to be negotiated very hard actually, because you see these are all related to the risk parameters and all these things. So from the funding point of view, CBG projects, everybody was very gongo some years before from the banking system or the financial institution system. Today also they are ready to fund, but they have now the strict covenants or strict conditions. Earlier they were funding at 10-15% of the margin of the promoter margin and all. Now you will go, they'll ask 25-30% project margin. We have seen, because we have advised many such companies, some of the lenders are asking some collateral also. They said we need some hard collateral other than the project assets, so that tomorrow something will go wrong, they can have some cushion on that actually. So you should be ready for that also. If you are a Reliance, then definitely nobody will ask the collateral, but you are not having such good name, so these things will come in the picture actually. Because many times, most of the developers are technical people, technocrats, or they are industry people. They are doing this mistake actually, that when they are going to the bank and bank are asking these things, they are blaming to the bank actually. So we should be ready with that actually. So these are the areas which need to be taken up in advance, and refinancing is one of the another area. So once you have taken the funding and then you have completed the project, you can go for the refinancing of the projects actually. So many times we are worried that cost is very high and all in the construction phase. But after 1 or 2 years, once the project is stabilized, you can go to the refinancing agency, you can get the funding at very low cost actually, less cost actually. So these are the areas which need to be kept in mind. On the equity side, if I see the investors and all, there are various models of it. If you are setting up one or two projects, definitely no equity player will be interested. But if you are setting up a bouquet of the projects with some technology partner or something, there can be a platform which you can create, like Ever Enviro and others have created. They brought the large equity partner, and they have committed that this much of the equity for maybe this much of the project they will do, and you are free to set up these projects actually. So this kind of model can be there, or you can go to the structured equity kind of requirement based on the project IRR. Also, there are performing credit funds and all. They give that debt in the form of equity, but the cost is very high. So these are the areas which can be thought of. Now some of the private equity funds are looking, if you are setting a 5-6 project, and you maybe in 5-7 years you can set up 10-15 projects, so they may go for some kind of small equity in the project, and then you can bring IPO after some years actually. So these are some of the areas which need to be kept in mind. I think these will help to you for getting the funding for these projects.
Thank you for giving a very good picture of the financing landscape and what kind of instruments that CBG developers can tap. Mr. Athali, if you can give the NABARD's perspective, especially on rural financing, what has been experience there? Have you financed any CBG projects, biogas projects, and do you give any interest subventions? What kind of services do you have?
Yeah, NABARD is having one green lending facility where we are financing the renewable projects, and like solar, that's wind energy, and CBG is also one of the eligible activity. We have financed CBG projects also. And one of the things is like we have worked in farmers producers organizations, and one of the most important thing for CBG plants is the feedstock. Like if you we have finance. We have developed almost 10,000 FPOs across India, and if you have any FPOs in those areas, you can get in touch with them, and through contract farming, those farmers can be encouraged to do Napier grass or those kind of production, and that if that kind of arrangement is made, that will be helpful for taking finance from the banks.
And what is the interest rates that you give for FPO?
It depends on market because we are doing mostly from market borrowings as well as on the risk perception of the client.
Right. And what kind of capacity of projects that they are setting up?
We are mainly looking more bigger projects, not smaller.
Bigger would be how much capacity?
20.
20 TPD. And which feedstocks are these? Majority of these projects have which feedstock?
Details I don't have right now.
And apart, do you give like refinancing services also?
Yeah, we are giving refinance to banks also.
Right.
So any renewable activity, renewable energy activity is eligible under refinance. So banks, NBFCs, all are eligible for refinance.
Yes. All right. Mr. Kumar, we talked about the financing trends there. If you can talk about the cost trends over the years for CBG projects, and a lot of numbers have been shared, and in the presentation also Mr. Malhotra gave numbers about the cost for different capacity of projects. So if you can talk about that and how have they changed over the years?
Yeah, thanks, Sarthak. See, the entire financing or the costing aspect, Intellicap has been very fortunate because we have seen both the spectrums of this entire business. On one hand, through our equity, our capital arm, which is Avishkar Capital, we are supporting startups, early stage also and medium stage also. Companies like Tespiel also have been supported. So where we are seeing that there is a huge demand for this entire sector and there is a push from the government side also. But the main key constraint is in the buyer predictability, because the business has to have certain kind of anchor load. There has to be a certain kind of predictability. While we were working on the solution aspect, so we were working with a project with JICA and now we are engaged with GIZ on a program called Soil Matters. On the other spectrum, we are seeing that how we can create that pull that right now these industries are not getting. So though, like our earlier panel was talking about this entire business and how they are trying to push this product. But there are certain pull side constraints which needs to be strengthened. There are certain design intervention which we found lagging. And for us, our case study was in Gujarat and where we were trying to see that how this model works. So we saw that on the costing aspect, one of the major constraint was that your biodigestate, it is not generating that revenue. And I think that our previous panel touched upon that issue. If we are able to monetize it properly, and we are able to create an economy which is locally, which is self-generating, so that creates the business viability of the entire enterprise, and then any lenders would be very much willing to support it. So that was one of the key insights that we saw, that how you can design your entire decarbonization project around the rural areas as a circular model.
And what was the share of FOM monetization in the total revenue that the developer was planning?
So we were focusing on cow dung based CBG plants, and if you know, cow dung happens to be one of the least efficient that way, if you see it from the gas perspective. But if you see the other perspective, which is the biodigestate, which was our focal area, it's a unique product because you get higher yields and it is a much proven product. The problem lies that right now the entire market development assistance and the entire fertilizer category order, the entire policy push, they consider that at par with your MSW based FOM. There is no separate categorization for that. So ideally for a product which should have got a premium, we are not seeing a separate market for that or a separate rate for that. So it is going, it's like selling a premium product at the cost of a very regular kind of product. So that was one of the key constraints. And in those of the units, we saw that your main business from gas is generating only 10-15% or most of it. So there is a huge place where we can play a role, where right kind of measures, interventions. It requires intervention definitely from the policy side also, but also from these DFIs that I was talking about, like JICA and all, where they can create, let's say, first loss guarantee fund, which can bear that first loss. even for farmers, see, when we talk about the transition and why farmers are not willing to take that risk, for them it is a huge risk. As an entrepreneur, they may be able to bear that loss for maybe 1 or 2 years, but for the farmer, it's a huge risk. We have seen that once they transition to these new models, there is a 40 to 60% yield drop or total revenue drop. So if there is a mechanism in which they are also guaranteed for those transition period, so it will be really helpful and they will be more willing to take that plunge, you can say. So we felt that these are certain gaps which needs to be seen holistically.
All right. Dr. Anjan, during the day's discussions, we've talked about carbon credits as well and how it is needed for revenue generation and to make a project bankable. For our audience, if you can first demystify the carbon markets situation status that we have in India right now, what kind of markets are we developing and how does the CBG space can enter that carbon trading market and earn revenue? If you can very simplify this concept for our audience.
Sure. So carbon markets have been around for around 20-25 years. We are still trying to demystify them. So I can't do that in this conference. But yeah, so carbon credits, earlier India used to be a primary seller of carbon credits and several companies have earned from carbon credits. Now CBG is also something that generates carbon credits from 3 particular activities. So if you are using waste that would have otherwise degraded, biogenic waste, organic waste, then you are helping in methane avoidance. That is the portion of the credits that gives you the highest credit volume because methane is 29 times carbon dioxide, right? Then the second set of credits that you generate is when you use CBG to replace a fossil fuel. And the third set of credits is when you use the FOM for increasing soil organic carbon. Now, in short, CBG projects are eligible for carbon credits. The important thing is, what is the carbon credit price currently for CBG projects? Which mechanism are you selecting for your CBG project? For example, carbon credit trades have traditionally happened internationally where there have been a set of buyers who have their carbon offsetting goals, who have their decarbonization goals, and they want to offset their emissions. So they will purchase those credits. That's like, a crude analogy is the stock exchange where you have a stock, you sell your stock, somebody else buys your stock, right? Or your shares. Now, recently, several governments have started entering into bilateral agreements with other countries with respect to carbon credits, which is also known as Article 6. It is also a UN-backed mechanism. Unlike where our gold standards, which are private organizations, they also have done substantially well in the carbon market space, and they currently still occupy the largest volume, if you see, in the current transactions. But then not every carbon credit is equal. Not every project in carbon credit space is equal. Even one CBG project may differ from some other CBG projects, and 2 CBG projects will not fetch you the same price when it comes to your carbon credits. So it's not very easy. It's easy to say that, okay, my project is generating CBG, so it will generate carbon credits, but then how much revenue will I get from that carbon credit is a very long story. I'm not saying it is difficult. I'm just saying that there are several things that have to go right for you to be able to generate that revenue from carbon credits. Now, this bilateral mechanism that I was talking about, India has currently signed this with Japan and is in talks with other countries. When you sell in those mechanisms, you are expected to fetch substantially better prices than when you sell your carbon credits in other exchanges. That is the theory as of now, because those trades haven't started yet. So these are the avenues that you get, because by using CBG, you are avoiding emissions that would have escaped into the atmosphere, and you are increasing your soil carbon pool. So you have multiple avenues of generating carbon credits from the same project. But to whom are you selling, at what price are you selling, and when are you selling? They will not give you capex, right? They will not help you bridge your capex gap in most of the projects. They will help you bridge your OPEX expenses in most of the projects, unless you are doing a forward contract, which is again a very long story. But in most cases, carbon credits will help you manage your OPEXs, not your capex.
And do you have any important big pilot project or case study in mind, a CBG project which earned revenue from carbon credits? Any important case
I
study?
personally don't have direct data. I know there is a project in Indore that has the Ever Enviro project that was going ahead, but I don't have details on at what price they have sold or whether they have sold or not. I am working with a few clients where we are currently in the process of helping them get the carbon credits for their CBG projects because most of their CBG plants are currently under construction. So I am also in the CBG space working with clients who are currently setting up their CBG projects. And they face the same problem that A, they have to check whether the plant is viable or not. Then they have to see what is the amount of revenues or what is the IRR increase that just the carbon market revenue will give you. And there is no current data on how much a CBG credit is worth, right? So there is a lot of modeling that goes, there are a lot of assumptions that goes. Financiers will always question those assumptions. Right? So for example, if you would have gone for, let's say, a wind power project, right? Or even a forestry project, there is a history of transactions that have happened over the last 20 years. So people know that I am expected to generate X amount per credit. One credit is 1 ton of carbon dioxide emissions, right? For CBG, those cases are very rare, right? So it's difficult to put an exact price on CBG credits, which is the main challenge currently, if you ask me.
Yes, that's what I wanted to know about the price of the CBG credit.
I can't give you a value right here.
Right.
That would be a very controversial statement, but Intellicap does a lot of stuff, but yeah, I don't know if they would also like to, announce a value over here and then say that this is the price you might get.
Right. Dr. Singh, if you can elaborate on the carbon credit market space, because in the carbon credit space, and what's the revenue potential for CBG developers?
So, see, I have been a lender, so I would look at it from a lender's perspective. And normally the carbon credits for lender is not so much of an, we normally don't build into our model. Normally we don't, it's a delta for the equity investor, not for the debtor, because debtor only takes certain cash flows which are defined and which are available. So that is not an issue for a lender. Of course, there is, because CBG does deal with the methane part of it. And methane, as rightly told, that it is a multiplier effect. And so it provides a huge potential. Now the CCCTS market is going to operate in India, which is a domestic market. Let's see how it unfolds, because if a definite market is available in India, probably a more defined revenue of more favorable estimation would be possible. But, notwithstanding that, though that's not your question, but I'm taking the liberty to answer that. See, the CBG has really not taken off in India. It's as a alternative fuel, it has not really taken off. And lenders are still very wary, So government keeps on saying it's priority, and in our case, we are, now I'm on the other side of the table from lender to, I'm a promoter now of a CBG plant. Now, if I go to bankers, they are very enthusiastic to meet me, but they are very interested because the government mandates it is to create, lending to CBG. But they are very risk averse. They have so much of doubts and questions in mind that they are and they are more, not so much driven by the project per se, but they are driven by the collateral, the promoters, as Mr. Ashish mentioned, the promoters' background, the corporate history, like for example, Reliance setting up plant, or Tata setting up plant, or Adani setting up plant. So they will be very happy to do that. Unfortunately, it's not unfolding the way the renewable energy unfolded in India. The way solar and wind unfolded in India, because the entire industry was set up by small players. Today, they are all very big. I mean, they are all 3, 4, 5 gigawatt players, Renew Wind and so on, Acme and Hero Futuristic. They all started 2 megawatt guys, 3 megawatt guys, but they all grew up. Unfortunately, that is not repeating here. Now, to my mind, what occurs is there could be several issues, and there are developers here and they would give suggestions. But 2-3 things need to be, see, like the carbon credits don't give certainty to a lender. Similarly, lenders are not very happy about grants and subsidies. They really don't, bank so much on grants and subsidies in their financial evaluation. So it's better to give a pricing rather than give subsidy and grants. So built up in the pricing, let the, OMCs increase their prices and take from the government if they have to take the subsidies. Because if I take the example of power industry, the PPAs don't account for the subsidies. The subsidies come directly to the, either to the consumer or to the power purchasing company. Similarly, the subsidy should come to the oil companies. That is one area which they need to cover because, operational risk notwithstanding, the revenue risk at least can be defined, and revenue risk can give a defined IRR. So this is one low-hanging fruit which needs to be addressed.
All right, thank you. Mr. Athalwe, if you could share your perspective on the key risk. Mr. Athalwe, I wanted to ask you about the key risks that you have while lending the project, the key concerns that you have, the key risks that you have, and what can developers do to mitigate those risks for lenders?
As Mr. Singh has said, like bankers or lenders will be more interested in sure cash flows, guaranteed cash flows. So any tie-ups with the feedstock providers or any tie-ups with the oil marketing companies, that will play a great role in sanctioning the projects. That is more important for any of the project.
And are you also concerned about the offtake price as much as the offtake agreement? Offtake price as well, because the concerns that the offtake price is currently less, which...
Yeah, any price will play a role because all cash flows will be depending on the prices, offtake price also. No?
Yes, and the developer, the projects that you have given finance for, like what kind of challenges have they faced?
We have CBG is very small portfolio.
Okay, and in the biogas space?
No, not biogas. We have not.
Only. Okay, Mr. Sorry. Yes, Mr. Kumar, I wanted to ask you more about the carbon market space. What should be the methodology for it, and what are the, because he said that you've also worked in the carbon pricing space, so what kind of methodology should there be, and like which part of carbon credits generating can generate better price?
Yeah. So, like my co-panelist was suggesting, see, it is a very, very grey space. It's a very nascent kind of stage. Even we tried, like I was telling you about our engagement with JICA. So one of the models that we were suggesting that standalone, this may not be a viable kind of carbon project because we do not know what are the standards and how exactly it has to be designed. But if it can be clubbed with certain co-benefits, like we were talking about taking this entire Banaskantha region as a decarbonization project. In that case, we can club it with certain other co-benefits where biochar also has a play, where we are also talking about reducing your urea consumption overall. So overall the agricultural carbon emissions you are reducing. And ultimately the entire benefits are ultimately being plowed back to the communities. So since it is a community driven project, normally those kind of carbon projects have a higher value. There is no set agenda, but generally it is seen that wherever your smallholder farmers are associated with you, you get higher benefits. Even in forestry projects, you have CCB and all other additional financing method. So we had very similar kind of design. Right now also we are in the designing phase. So I would not like to comment more on this right now because the scene is still not very clear.
All right. And what about, because this is a nascent market right now, then how do we get to know about the quality of data and verification of the data? Like, what is the challenge there?
See, one of the key concerns in decarbonization with enterprises comes now because much of the data is being controlled by an entity. It is not in an open source data. So you have to be in a probe mode to get to interact and to verify whether this is going to work. See, whatever as a project developer we ultimately promise in our PDD, ultimately it has to go through a MRV stage, right? So everything has to stand against certain kind of standards. So those are certain challenges we face in decarbonization projects generally, but I think he will have a better sense on that.
All right. I'll get to that. But before that, Mr. Malhotra, you talked about different capacities and the cost. And in the discussion in the morning with developers, they said that the minimum capacity should be around 10 to 12 TPD to make the project bankable. Do you agree with this?
Actually, there are 2 points of views actually on that, because the government has envisaged 5,000 projects. There are mandates given to OMCs and bigger companies to set up around 500 to 700 of them. So, but the retail market, which is the new entrepreneurs, technocrats who are putting up the first plant, they are trying to understand the business. They are trying to understand the system. So it all started with a 1 ton, 2 ton. Now it is a 3 ton kind of a system. So 3 to 5 ton is the minimum for the retail segment, the mass segment. And for these bigger corporates, yes, 10 to 20 ton, because they don't, like for example, a sugar industry, they have the press mud available, but none of the sugar mills have then put up their own plants. They have been selling the press mud out because of the ticket size, the small size. Now, after the spent wash thing has started, the plants can be made up to 12 ton, 15 ton capacity. So now the ticket size for them is attractive. So this is kind of an evolving situation where for the retail market, 3 to 5 ton, 6 ton is good size. And for the higher, like the bigger setups, 20 ton, 15 to 20 tons is a bigger, that size. So that is my take on that.
And in the discussion in the morning, there was also talk about the cross breakup as well. And what has been your experience with that? Because I think they said almost 40 to 50% of the cost goes to feedstock aggregation. And management.
Yes, in fact, see, when this, I would say when the policy was envisaged around 2018, at that time, all the feedstocks were free of cost, almost. They were being thrown. People were giving money to, like sugar mills were paying 15 paisa to remove the press mud from their premises. Today, they are asking money, plus they are saying, you pick it up from my setup. So the total dynamics has changed. So yes, this is a very big, like these things are evolving, as I said, like land cost. 2 years back, 3 years back, 10 lakh rupees an acre was the cost. Today, somebody wants to set up a plant, he is getting at 25, 30 lakh rupees an acre. So there are so many things which are evolving. So these challenges, yes, but today feedstock cost is around 40 to 50%, yes. Electricity cost is another 20-25%, depending on area, state. So these are the realities of the game today. When they started, they were envisaged to be 5-10% feedstock cost. Something like that was envisaged. So the industry at 40 rupees was also profitable. But today at 70 rupees also it's not profitable. So that's the dynamics change.
All right. Before I move to the next set of questions, we can take some questions from the audience, if there are any. Yes. The question on the third row first. In the third row. Yes.
First of all, thank you for the insightful session. My question is that is there a need for appointment of a government regulatory body to support monetization of carbon credits or formalize the mechanism?
And your question is for which panelist?
To Dr. Anjan. Yeah.
The short answer to your question is there already is. So Bureau of Energy Efficiency under Ministry of Power is the body that is taking care of the Indian domestic carbon market system, right? Apart from that, there are other bodies like UN is also developing a international carbon market system. There are private bodies such as Verra and Gold Standard. But with respect to government bodies, Bureau of Energy Efficiency is the one that is administering the Indian carbon market. However, ideally, government bodies do not interfere in the pricing of carbon markets. Those are determined by the market demand and market supply. So ideally, governments do not interfere, or even in the voluntary markets internationally, pricing is determined by the market. Their intervention ideally should not happen.
All right. The question, the second row.
Hello. Yeah, hi. My question is to any lenders on the panel. I would suggest that one of the key differences between renewables and CBG is that unlike wind and solar, this market has a significant commodity exposure, both on the feedstock side and on the CNG product side. So from the perspective of a lender, how is this risk dealt with? Are we just expecting higher returns, or are there other alternatives by which a lender can, just feel more security dealing with this commodity exposure?
Yes.
See, there are two ways of looking at project risk. One is you look at the entire ecosystem of the project, the promoter, who is doing it, the guarantees, the collateral, and all that. You take care of the ecosystem. With due respect to a lot of lenders, Indian lending system works on safeguards, especially the government lending system. It's very defensive. It tries to work on safeguard that tomorrow something goes wrong. The decision should not be questioned from audit or any other perspective. So they try to build around the ecosystem rather than understanding the business risk as such. There is need for institutions to understand the basic risk involved. See, now the risk mitigation has to be the way I look at CBG projects. As you rightly said, there are variables which are involved, inputs variables which are involved, which was not there in case of. But the lenders never foresaw that. They initially thought there was a lot of risk, so nobody was lending to renewable as well. The way it is, they are not lending to biomass. They were not lending to renewable. When they saw that, yes, the model has been successful. So, but it's very important that at that stage, the lender and the policy, the government, they work together, because see, there are gaps around, because, it's not that it's not doable at all. And it's a priority for the government, and it's also been put on the priority sector. So the government and the lenders have to work around and find some kind of an way out. Now, that's where, I give credit to Mr. Don't want to be political, but Mr. Nitin Gadkari, like, for example, highways were in shambles. Now, when he took over as the highway minister, because he was a businessman, he understood the risk best. He was not a politician. He was a businessman. So he said that, let me call all the lenders, all the financial institutions, ask them how they will lend, what are the risks which need to be covered. So they gave the X, Y, Z, their wish list. And every wish list was granted. And you see the result. So similarly, you have to call the lenders, address their risk, all that, where the gaps are there, the policy gaps, the government has to fill in. Initially held on. Once the sector takes off, then, the lenders, now what has happened in case of wind and solar? They are overbought. A solar project guy goes to the market, and there are 5 lenders waiting for him. And the moment he commissions the project, there are 3 lenders ready to refinance at a lower rate. And there is international money which is waiting to come to their door. So it was not there. So similarly, same thing has to be worked. Now, Indian Biomass Association has to, do a considerable bit of advocacy here, work alongside with the lenders and government and fill in the gap. These gaps need to be filled up. Otherwise, there will be asymmetry in the market. And asymmetry will create, when there is asymmetry, it is neither good for the lender, nor good for the promoter, not good for the government. So all stakeholders need to be there.
All right. Thank you. Yes.
I'd just like to add on this question. It's a very valid question. Like any manufacturing setup, when we have a raw material and we have a finished product, so there is a inventory or a stock holding cost. So maybe that can kind of credit what he was trying to get. So I think we have to innovatively understand, the banking system has to understand that and give some credit for that to the owner. That would maybe make it more easier.
All right. Is there any other question from the audience? Okay. Yes.
Hi, thank you. My question to Dr. Pawan Singh. For the solar, a lot of foreign money came with very low interest. When is that going to happen for CBG? What is the outlook from your side?
See, there is no rocket science. See, money is, they say that, once FICCI chairman told in one of the seminars, money is a coward. Money is coward. It goes where the risk is lowest. It doesn't go where the risk is highest. So there is no brainer. You have to reduce the risk. See, in solar projects, you reduce the risk initially. So initially you had VGF support which was available. And you were ready to buy, see, because the grid power was available at 3 rupees that time. And the distribution companies started buying solar at 16 rupees, 17 rupees. Gujarat started that. When they started buying it, there was expansion. So somebody has to pay the price which covers the risk. And that the oil marketing companies have to do. They have to pay the price. Once they cover the risk in their pricing model, you don't try to support it by this, that, backhand, this. No, you give them the pricing, what it deserves. Once the, scale up happens and the lenders lend and they gain confidence, you will have plethora of money coming there. Because after all, this is also, this is also a green sector. This is also, helps in making country net zero. It helps in making countries self-reliant. The crisis which happened recently, it helps you to, take care of your political risk. So it's very much, it's strategically so important. So only thing is that we have to initial that, it's a hockey stick. It's a hockey stick model. So once you are in that growth, once you are into that loop, then quickly you will scale up. It's just waiting to be scaled up. That points have to be kind of reconnected.
All right. Thank you. Is there any other question from the audience? Maybe one last question we can take. No? Okay. Yes, that will be the last question. Yes.
Hi, good evening. So one of the panelists in the earlier discussions mentioned that Sampoorn Govardhan, that is basically a new policy, integrated policy going to come into play, where the price is going to be revised to around 110 rupees. I mean, that is what he mentioned per kg. So do you think that is going to make the financing part much more easier? Because, I mean, all revenue related discussion is going to end if that happens.
Mr. Agarwal, if you can take it.
So your question is regarding this price. Yeah, definitely. When the revenue will be revised in terms of the price, definitely it will impact the overall cash flow of the project actually.
I mean, currently it's 72, around 72.
Yeah.
That is going to go up to 110 almost.
So
is
then
what he
the
mentioned.
entire outlook will change actually. If you see the project IRR and the cash flows will be better. But the project risks which are there actually, the raw material risk, technology and all, these need to be mitigated so that the revenue is high, but practically if the project is not completed, then the entire money which has been invested in the project will go into problem actually. So definitely, whatever the revenue increase is there, it will help. And the government is also trying. And what I believe also that the confidence of the lenders and investors will boost up because now you see that the oil marketing companies are doing joint venture. We have seen in the session in the afternoon. So these companies are bringing a lot of legacy from the large organizations' point of view. So the joint venture projects will be successful and then the lenders will be comfortable also. The Reliance is coming up with that. So there are a lot of large players are coming and they are joining hands with the smaller partners. So this outlook will change, will take at least 3-4 years and the revenue increase also in terms of the government price and all these things will help. But as of today, you'll see that there are very few projects which have been set up in India actually. I think target-wise something around 5,000 projects and all. It is hundreds only. So every sector has grown like that. Solar actually started in 2006 or something. And it took 15 years to take off actually. In 2020 onward, actually the large projects start coming in. It has started gaining the momentum actually. So it will happen in this sector also, but these are huge points are there which need to be plugged in actually.
All right, with this, we will end the session. A big hand for all our panelists. Thank you so much for the discussion. Thank you so much.